Python, we can create fractal or recursive designs as well as a way of studying the concept of recursion. I like it because it gives a visual aspect to it. Now here's a relatively simple fractal design that I created. It's a tree. And if you look closely, what you'll notice is that each branch splits into four, and then it goes along a little bit, and then it splits into four. And then if you were able to see more clearly without all the leaves here, you would see that it keeps splitting. Every time it splits into four, the same angles, the same designs, and each branch gets smaller by the same proportion. So this design repeats itself over and over and over, and it's a way of studying recursion. There are lots of examples of really interesting fractals, and I have a small collection of here that I'll show you. But you can see here, these are more complex, and this one is somewhat more simple, but it's still got quite a bit of code here. And this is the actual recursive part of this design. And it's called a coach snowflake. And if I run that, this is a specific type of fractal. There it is. Okay. So it's going to draw this design. And once again, what you can see here is that this design repeats itself as smaller and smaller pieces of itself. So this is a 6-point star. And the way this design works is that we're getting simpler and simpler each time it draws it. It'll draw simpler ones on top of each other. So you can really see how that design is put together. So every time we have a straight line, it gets about a third of the way into the straight line and it draws a point. And then it continues and finishes that line. So you can see every straight line has a point, and then it does that inside itself. So every straight line here has a point. Every straight line has that point. And if you look even more closely, you can see there's a red on the orange, that every straight line has a point on a smaller and smaller interval. And we could go even a level smaller than this if we wanted to, but it repeats that same design inside itself. So that's a simple fractal design called a coach snowflake. And so we have also, this one is really cool. It's called the dragon curve. This one, oops, wrong one. Got to run the correct script here. So the dragon curve design is really interesting. And this is one of my favorite ones because it ends up looking really cool. And I actually added a script to this that changes the color very gradually as it draws it. So it's going to come out with this really cool rainbow sort of design. The interesting thing about this one is that it's drawn entirely using vertical and horizontal line segments. They're just very small. And so it's basically drawing hundreds of little boxes. But you can already see that the design is beginning to repeat itself. Now, if I take that and I make the line segments a little bit bigger, let me see if I can, segment length, there we go. Let's make it 2.5 times the size. And that will allow us to see, okay, you can start to see the boxes a little bit there. I'll make them even a little bit bigger. And then you'll be able to see them very well. Okay, so there is that same design at a larger size. The cool thing about this is the line never crosses over itself. So this is going to draw little boxes and even go back in and fill in some of these shapes But this is a mathematical formula that you can see, which is something I think is really cool about these scripts. I'm going to see if I'll let this run for a little while, and then we can come back and see it. Let me see if it'll let me run two at a time here. If I have my tree here. Okay, so here's the tree again that I showed you at the beginning. And you can see it's drawing the first tree shape over here. So it splits, and you can see every time it splits into four. And then when it finally gets to a small enough size, it draws a leaf at the end. And so this branch splits into four. Next, it's going to come split this one, and this one will split, and this one will split. And you can kind of see how it's drawing this as it goes. It's drawing it goes all the way to the smallest branch, and then it goes back. So it's gonna draw all the way to that smallest branch first. So it goes all the way up, and then it goes back and it fills in the rest. But it's kind of an interesting design, and it creates a very mathematical shape as we do it. So if we go back to the dragon curve now, you can kind of see that one's progressing nicely, and you can really see the fractal shape now, right? It's got this nice curve to it, and you can see, obviously, since I lowered the resolution of this by increasing the segment length, it looks a little bit different or less detailed, but it's the way this draws itself without the line ever crossing over itself kind of just blows my mind a little bit. So I really like watching that dragon curve. And so you can see this one now is drawing a slightly shorter tree. So we just started with a smaller tree, and it's going to layer them and brighten the color up on each one so that we end up with something like this. Okay. So